I'm here primarily because I believe that there should be sunshine in government. And so I, for one, I welcome these types of pieces because the more information we have, the more we can look at. And if that's the rules, that's the rules. But I appreciate, you know, whoever, whether it's the Marshals Museum folks or folks in this room giving out information, because I think questions need to be answered and tough questions need to be asked. As Robbie says, I'm not against the Marshals Museum, I'm for the Marshals Museum. And it may bring prosperity to Fort Smith, and that's what we all want because we care deeply about Fort Smith. But we've also seen this over here. We've seen these projects, what I call white elephants, in this city. And it always seems that it's always the benefit or the special interest. And quite frankly, I think we've got a problem in downtown Fort Smith. I think we've got a select few who are running the show in Fort Smith, and they're profiting mightily from it. And I think it's time that questions are asked on various projects, not just the Marshals Museum. I think there needs to be transparency across the board. But we've got a River Valley Sports Complex. I mean, you know, General Improvement Fund money. You know, that's not acceptable. When that thing was ramrodded through by our city board, just like
I'll vote against it.
More but it went on forever, and there were citizens who were asking questions. And the long story short is that the taxpayers ended up funding the bill. We look at the sewage project. Think about how many years we've had a sewage and street tax. And then, was it extended? Yes, it was extended. Was the name changed so that they could divert funds from the sewage project? I mean, we ought to have more money now than we know what to do with. And we ought to have a sewage. We ought to have the best streets in the world because we have funded that. Go on to the convention center. What do you think the next tax is going to be after we finish this tax?
Food tax.
Well, it's going to be the food tax. We've already heard rumblings of the food tax. What tax did we just pass back in May? We passed a huge millage increase because our schools were in need. I didn't come out hard against that, although I thought it was way too much, and I think some of the beneficiaries and the people who were pushing it were the same people that are pushing for the Marshals Museum. But I think the Marshals Museum is going to be another white elephant. I hope it succeeds. I mean, I pray it succeeds. But the issue is I don't think we ought to have another sales tax foisted in what I call at the point of a gun and say that there's no plan B. Because everyone in this room knows that there is a plan B. Number one, as for example, Dr. Sandy Sanders says, we're gonna be at this as long as it takes. Hey, so go do your job. I mean, you know, there's been some pretty hefty salaries being paid. That's their job to raise these funds. Bottom line, it's not the another tax on the citizens of Fort Smith. Another plan B. If I buy a house and I can't afford that house, then I don't buy the big house. I downsize. You know, when this project was sold, it was a $20 or $30 million project. Now it's a $50 million project. If Fort Smith can't afford $50 million, then let's go down to $30 million. Or let's take out a loan. Really the problem that I have, though, is who's going to be left holding the bag. Because we have a, quote, public facilities board, which if anyone's looked at it, it's just an end run around our state constitution. And we're going to have 5 citizens. Well, who are those 5 citizens going to be? I think that the powers that be know who the 5 citizens are going to be, but we won't hear about it because they can't tell us that until after the tax. What responsibility are the 5 citizens going to have if the project goes belly up? They're going to have no responsibility. The city doesn't own the property. Who do you think they're going to come to? It's too big to fail. So they're going to be asking us to come bail out the project again. And, you know, what about the lease? You know, in Fort Smith, we've seen a history of these types of deals where okay, they're going to transfer the property over to this public facilities board, and then they're going to pay, the Marshals Museum will lease the property back. Well, how much is that lease going to be, and where's that money going? Where is that money going? What about the, I don't want to waste time on other projects or other city ventures and downtown developer ventures that there's big lease money involved. But all those questions need to be answered. You know, was it intended to be private? Was it? Absolutely. I mean, you know, you've seen this. I mean, our city was telling us, you know, when the groundbreaking occurred, all without raising taxes and utilities. I had a citizen come to me last week, water bill for water sewage, $300 a month, $269 the prior month. I mean, that's all to pay for the irresponsibility that we've seen with regard to our sewage system. So Fort Smith cannot stand to have another River Valley Sports Complex, sewage problem, or a convention center that we've been subsidizing to the tune of $700,000 a year. We just can't let it happen, and that's one of the reasons that I want questions asked, and they need to be answered, and that I support George when he's the only one on the board who had the courage to stand up and just say no. And I think we as a group, whoever, I know that there's probably some folks for the sales tax, that's fine. But the folks who are against it we've got to get out and we've got to educate folks. We've got to get questions answered, and we've got to go to the polls. The special election business, I mean, to say that well, we didn't have time to get it into the general election, I mean, come on. This has been going on for 12 years now. How many election cycles is that? I mean, wait another 2 years. I've talked already my share, I'm sure, but Gordon.